Oh, it's 8:30 Philippine time. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here, and I think this is my first solo YouTube live. I had two with some amazing guests last year. And so, yeah, trying something new. It's New Year, new Lunar New Year also. Tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, Year of the Tiger. So, welcome everyone. Welcome. My name is Kazane. You can also call me Wendy. It's my YouTube channel, Zara Wendy. So, these are all my three names. Wendy's my birth name, and Zara's my baptism name, my Christian name, and Kazane is my samurai name. So, please let me know where you're coming in from in the comments box. Otherwise, I can't really see. And I wanted to share with you guys some of these tips, these top 10 tips for health, vitality, boosting our immune system. So I'm happy that health and wellness has been on everybody's mind. And I like focusing on what we can do to strengthen that rather than focusing on what's not really working. For the most part, I feel like that's more constructive and more helpful. So I'm an energy healer, mentor, coach, teacher. I've been practicing Reiki energy healing since 2015 and teaching since 2016. I'm not going to talk specifically about Reiki because I talk about that in my other platforms. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Zara Kazane _Wendy. On Facebook, I have a Facebook group as well, private group called Gasho Circle, and I also have a podcast, which used to be called Zara Wendy the podcast, and now it's called Kazane Sound of the Wind, which you guys can find on Spotify, Apple, other podcast sources. And season 1 and 3, I actually have the audio version here on YouTube. I didn't do season 2 for some reason. I was testing it out. Yeah. So again, who is this for? Well, this is for anyone who's been suffering from exhaustion, stress, burnout. I lately have been mostly working with women, but really anyone can benefit from these tips. And a year and a half ago, June 2020, I actually have a video, which was a Facebook Live. And I think I just put the recording on YouTube, so you guys can check that out. It's called What to Do with Excess Sexual Energy, 10 Tips for Guys. Yeah, and so that was I got a lot of good feedback from that video. People found it very helpful. And so I thought I'd do another top 10 lists. I really love lists. I make a lot of lists. And yeah, that one was mainly for guys, but again, the same themes are going to come back for those of you who've worked with me before. You'll find that out. And actually, when I looked at that old video and my new list, there was only one point that kind of overlapped. I mean, that was the same. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, let me know where you're coming from. If there's anyone, if you're new to the channel, if you're new to working with me, or if you're someone, maybe one of my students, someone I've worked with in the past, I would love to know. All right. So, what can you get from watching this video? Obviously, relief from stress, relief from actually not so much from stress, but kind of learning to manage your stress better. More vitality and well-being, as the title says, and of course, the side effect of that is an increased, a stronger, healthier immune system. And I'll wait maybe one more minute before I get started. Oh, yeah, it's 5 past. So I'm going to start. So the first tip that I have for you guys is, and so this is kind of like a haphazard list. There's no particular way you have to do it, and you can kind of pick and choose. And I feel like that's part of my advocacy, is to help people take control of their health, take control of their bodies, take control of their minds and their emotions, not in a like controlling manner, but more in a like a this energy of sovereignty, that they're no longer giving their power thoughtlessly away out of maybe fear, out of fear of not knowing, right? So my belief as a healer is that we actually know best what our body needs. Our body knows what it needs, and our mind kind of gets in the way of that process. So a lot of this, a lot of the work is getting out of our own way, quieting our mind, quieting our ego that has this agenda of staying at like the status quo and keeping things as they were always. But the thing is, things evolve, right? We have new diseases, we have new viruses, we have new challenges, and so we cannot stay stagnant. And so the body is much more responsive to these changes if we take the time to really listen, right? So some of these are going to be a little controversial, but I'm just going to go right ahead. And my first tip is actually to get more sunshine. And I'm sure you guys have heard this before. I know it's difficult definitely in countries where it's wintertime. And I lived in Europe and in the US for a long time, so I know how challenging this is. But this whole video is about how to reframe health and wellness and vitality, right? So shifting our priorities, right? So out of the 10, maybe there are a couple that you can fit in and then change and then add and so on. So definitely sunshine. It's scientifically proven to boost your immune system, right? It's a source of vitamin D, which is healthy for the bones and the teeth. And it fights what do you call it? Depression, right? Because it increases dopamine and serotonin levels, which are feel-good chemicals that our body makes. It helps with our sleep, and everyone knows how important sleep is to maintaining a healthy body, a healthy immune system. And so getting more sunshine doesn't mean you have to spend like the whole day in the sun. That's so unrealistic. So even 5 minutes of sunshine is actually enough. And so when we're talking about getting enough sunshine, really, it's obviously this is a very, very general video, and oftentimes I work more like one-on-one, and people are so different in terms of where they live, what their skin type is like. I'm going to say that I'm going to admit that I stopped wearing sunscreen a couple of years ago, maybe when I started Reiki, actually, maybe, or less, maybe 6 years ago. And yeah, I got a couple of maybe like sunspots because the sun here is very, very, very intense. So sometimes I'm really careful. But one of the two main reasons I stopped using sunscreen is, number one, the chemicals in the sunscreen are actually worse for the skin and for the body than the actual having that sunshine. And then of course I wanted to get the benefits from the sun, which if I'm wearing sunscreen, it's going to stop a lot of those benefits. And actually we can build a resistance. So it's about taking in the sun in a smart manner. So building up the time you spend taking in sun, and making sure checking in on what time of the day, right? So what I don't advise is like spending 2 hours. If you haven't been in the sun for months and then you spend like an hour in the noonday sun, that's like absolutely no. But if it's like you can spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the morning sun or in like the late afternoon sun, and build that up, and that's enough. That's enough to get your vitamin D. So use common sense when it comes to sunshine and sun. Yeah, the other reason is that just not only is it bad for our skin, it's also a lot of these chemicals are bad for the environment. And I live in a tropical area where, the corals are very, very sensitive to some of these chemicals. So there's another thing I wanted to mention, which is really interesting about the sun, is that I also stopped wearing sunglasses. So I used to be so addicted to my sunglasses. Like my daughter was just telling me, I used to actually wear sunglasses, even in the car, with the shades on. And so I completely stopped when I learned about sun gazing meditation, sun gazing practices. Actually, again, having that exposure that we build up little bit. Of course, I never stare directly in the sunlight. That's super dangerous. So that's not what I'm saying. Just having indirect sunlight in the eyes, for the eyes to get used to it. It's actually really, really good for also the pineal gland. And it's a practice that a type of meditation practice. So personally, I don't use sunscreen. I don't use sunglasses, and I'm mindful of when I go out in the sun, how long I stay out in the sun. So again, a word of caution: it depends on where you live on the globe and what your skin type is like, right? So that's my first tip. Welcome if you guys are just coming in, and this is kind of like haphazard, right? And you'll see they're all kind of related, and you kind of like pick and choose from each one of them. So my second point or tip in building this kind of long-lasting holistic form of health and wellness is practicing radical forgiveness. And I want to emphasize this is actually self-forgiveness. Those of you who have a meditation practice already, and many of you probably do, have maybe done some sort of forgiveness practice during meditation or during a retreat, a workshop. Why is this so important? Because when we practice forgiveness, it's a way for our body to release emotions that create a toxic environment. So basically, the whole idea is that we're creating an environment where, when outside, like viruses, right, or bacteria come in, they're not gonna be able to flourish in it. That's the whole point of this of the practice, or of this work, or this holistic approach to health, right? So practicing forgiveness is a way of actually clearing a lot of the toxins that comes with resentment and hatred. So these are actually, I'm not doing any practices. We're not going to do any exercises. These are just areas for you guys to explore and realize that these can be very powerful in terms of building up sustainable, natural health for yourself, for your loved ones, for the family. So in terms of practicing forgiveness, there are many ways you can do this. You can write a letter to yourself, and for something that the hardest thing is really with yourself, because sometimes we don't even realize how we haven't forgiven ourselves for certain things. So it does take a little bit of practice. None of these tips are like what do you call it? These are lifestyle tips. It's never about a quick fix, right? Although you can have breakthroughs, and I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in others where they get some breakthroughs from just one practice, or. So writing a letter, you can burn it, you can give it to. You don't have to give it to a person if it's someone else. If it's to yourself, read it to yourself. Allow yourself to kind of sleep on it. Maybe there's something that you feel bad, that a mistake, a bad decision you made. All of us, who doesn't feel bad about, a decision in hindsight, right? So writing a letter about that, like, dear self, I really wish things had worked out differently, but I really forgive you for making this decision. And, from here on, let's do this, something like that. So writing a letter. Visualization meditation. I do this in sessions where, like shamanic journeys, where we visualize a person in front of us, whether it's myself, or someone who you feel wronged you or hurt you. and having a conversation. And the advantage of this is that you can do it with, so again, the person doesn't have to be present, right? You don't have to have a confrontation, or the person could even be deceased, like a deceased loved one. You can have that forgiveness, even if they're far away or deceased. So that's something else to explore, the forgiveness practice like that. And I do suggest, if you're not so sure about this, to ask for the support of a guide, a healer, a practitioner, like myself. But there are many, many out there. Obviously, there's so many out there, so that is helpful. Okay, so that was my second point. And then my third is, it's actually very much related to the second point of the forgiveness practice, is letting go of blame. Blame and resentment are both emotions that create a very toxic environment in our bodies. And so, again, by now you must, if you didn't know it yet, I'm somebody who works very much in a very holistic approach to health, where our emotions are very much related to our physical and our mental well-being. That's why a lot of these are, it's emotional work, it's inner work. So letting go of blame means being accountable and realizing that you create your own reality. And so that's not something that's easy to accept, right? That whatever difficult situation we are in, maybe we didn't want to be there, deep down inside, we actually brought this upon ourselves. I know this is difficult to accept when there's like a force majeure, like in the Philippines. We recently had a super typhoon. I live in the Philippines, so how does that happen, right? So the thing is, as humans, we have a very limited perception of existence and reality. So there's a part of acceptance and trust, and that allows us to move forward. And if we get stuck in the blame or blaming God, maybe we're blaming God, or blaming the government, or blaming other people. I find myself sometimes blaming people who don't respect the environment. So we're actually all, this is about interbeing, interconnectedness. For those of you who are familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh, who passed away a week ago, the amazing Vietnamese Zen monk and teacher, he's all about interbeing and interconnectedness. And if you're familiar with his poem, Please Call Me by My True Names, I encourage you to look that up. It's really about, he says, I'm the slave, and then I'm also the smuggler, of the slave. Like he's everything, we're everything. That's a really, really beautiful poem to illustrate that. And this is something to contemplate on very, very deeply. It's not something that you just think about. Again, these are not quick fixes. These are points of contemplation. And as we contemplate them, they're little shifts that occur in our system that will affect the rest of our day, the rest of our interactions, the rest of our choices when we go out into the world. So these might not sound like they're related at all with vitality or health, but my experience over, having hundreds of clients and students over the past 6 years has led me to believe that, these are all equally important in our journey to health and sovereignty over our own health. Okay, so looking at the time. So number 4 is, these are also very much related. Like the first one was about something external, and these are all about inner work and inner processes, right? So the fourth one is learning to accept yourself, including your flaws. I feel it's related to the forgiveness part as well. We are really our greatest, oftentimes we're our greatest critics. And if we don't think that's the case, that's because we're not hearing that voice, right? So start noticing, practicing this mindfulness. Again, this is one of Thich Nhat Hanh's practices, mindfulness, and starting when we make a mistake or when things don't turn out the way we want them to be, what does that little voice, that inner critic, say to us? Yeah, and we start listening to that, and whenever it's something hurtful, it affects our whole system. So our bodies are made mostly of water. I think it's 70%. Sometimes people say it's 80, 60%, mostly water. So there's that Japanese scientist, I always forget his name. I think it's like Marimoto or something like that, who did those experiments, when they were kind of experimenting with different talking to water with one was like saying hateful words to the water, and then another one was like saying words of love, and then they were analyzing the structure, how it affected the water, and their findings were very, very striking. And so imagine you're doing that to yourself, right? So your body, you're mostly made of water, and then you keep telling yourself, you're such an idiot, like you keep messing to him, you're so clumsy. People say these all the time, and it's just they're on automatic pilot, and they don't realize that they're programming their body. They're programming their body to be clumsier. They're programming themselves to be forgetful. They're programming themselves to not be able to dance, to sing, to whatever that is, that they're being critical of themselves. So learn to accept yourself, including your flaws, also means start being mindful of that inner chatter, inner critic, and the power of the words. So they don't have to be spoken. They don't have to be spoken. We can just be thinking, such an idiot. And so our body registers that. It's like we're programming our body, yes, I'm such an idiot. Okay, so when we start changing that conversation, that narrative, our body will also respond differently. If we start giving it messages of strength, of love, I heal easily, I don't get sick, my immune system is strong, all of these things. That's also kind of like affirmations. It's on my list, but yeah, it's kind of related to that. So noticing and being mindful of that inner critic. Okay, how are you guys doing? I can't see who's on here. Let me just check on yeah. I can't really see. Okay. I'll just go on if you guys don't have any questions. Is this working? Oh, it's working. Oh. So next point is number 5. And so this one is the one, I think this is the one that I mentioned was the same as the 10 tips for guys that I did in 2020. So breathe longer, deeper breaths. And this is something that is easily overlooked because it's very simple. And people, I feel like they don't want to stop their busy lives, or, they don't want to stop the hamster wheel thing to just stop and take a breath, because it's like, why would they do that? They feel like they're already breathing, but breathing techniques are so. Why do you think like their entire schools of thought that are dedicated to this, like pranayama, right? In yoga, it's like whole science of proper breathing, or for example, in free diving, they teach you how to breathe deep breath so that you can go underwater in one entire breath. So most people breathe in a very shallow manner. Where did I read this? Where I think it's in Japanese. There's a Japanese or a Chinese saying that we have only, we are allotted, each human is allotted a finite number of breaths per lifetime. So that, I always keep that in mind. Imagine you're allotted like 1 million breaths. I'm just like making this up. If you're allotted 1 million breaths in a lifetime, wouldn't you want your breath to be longer, right? If you put it in that perspective, it kind of like makes sense, right? Yeah. So think of it that way. Longer, deeper breaths. There's so many practices you can learn pranayama, right? In the yogic tradition, Free diving I already mentioned as well, but Qigong, Tai Chi, all of these things. Okay, and there's another point, I think it's point number 8, that's kind of related to this as well. Right. So that's number 5. So we're halfway through. I hope you guys are enjoying this, are finding it helpful. So the first, I'm just going to recap, is to get more sunshine. The second is to practice forgiveness. The third is to let go of blame. The fourth is to learn to accept yourself, including your flaws. The fifth is to breathe longer, deeper breaths. And then the sixth one is to gradually change your diet. But I think it's more of being mindful of the food you eat. And when I say your diet, it's not only the food you eat, but where you eat it, how you eat it, what time of the day you eat it. In human design, for example, which is a body of work that helps you learn to manage your energy and make decisions based on your energetic blueprint. They're specific guidelines for when and how to eat, like the environment and the circumstances of. It's not so much what you eat. So, for example, in my profile, as I can eat whatever, not whatever, but more or less I can eat anything, but it has to be not under direct sunlight. So I have to do it when the sun is down, or like the shades are down or something, which is really interesting. Like before I studied human design, I never even heard of that concept, right? So why is that? I don't know. I'm not an expert of human design, but what I do know is that, again, we're constantly communicating with our environment, and again, our digestive system is part of that. It's part of the whole, part of the environment. So we're going to digest differently if we're in a noisy environment and we're standing and we're walking. So I lived in France and in the US, and there are very different approaches with food. For example, in France, you would never, or like when I was growing up, which is a long time ago, maybe now it's different, but when you're eating, you sit down, right? And I told this to my friend recently, and she was like at home, I was staying with her, and she was eating standing up, and I was like, no, you gotta have a seat. You can't you can't eat standing up. Like it's a completely different experience. So be mindful of that, right? Be aware of what's it like when you're eating. If you're relaxed, if you relax your belly, if you maybe even take a breath, it's going to be, the body is going to approach and welcome the food differently. So I'm not saying have a burger every lunch or anything, but I'm saying it's more than just the food that you're ingesting, right? Yeah, so this whole thing about saying grace, or in Japan they say itadakimasu, kind of blessing the food. All of that has a meaning. When I was growing up and people would say grace, I used to think it was so like just annoying. I didn't say grace with the others. Like I was boycotting that. So I didn't know the sense of it. Which in retrospect, I think it's important when we do things to do it full-heartedly. So yeah. Now I say grace in my own way, with a full heart. And if you don't, then that's fine. But pay attention to that. Also, by the way, as you start to work with these different areas, right? When you're doing your forgiveness work, and you're doing your breath work, and you're doing your sunshine, getting better sleep as a result, all of these things, your the way you eat automatically changes as well. I know we're not really talking about Reiki, but for example, once you start practicing an energy healing, your food choices also tend to change. So these are things. What I don't suggest is like, oh, I'm going to be like, sometimes people say like, I'm going to be vegan, like kind of like overnight, and that's never. I feel like that's actually detrimental, because you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. So don't kind of approach. If you're going to change your lifestyle and want to bring more health and vitality, take a holistic approach, right? So look at your environment, look at your emotions, look at your inner critic, the mental, look at the body. All together, they work together. You can't just like, I'm gonna do this, and then you fail, and then you're gonna like be upset with yourself and get go down that spiral, right? Okay, so that was number 6. Oh, thanks for the thumbs up, guys. I still don't know who's here or where you guys are from. That's fine. Number 7. So we have 3 more to go. Number 7 is write your thoughts down. So I know some people. I love to journal, but if you're not into journaling, you don't have to necessarily journal. You can just kind of doodle. If you want to doodle, you can doodle. You can kind of type dream journal, which is really nice because dreams give us a lot of also clues on things, themes that you kind of repressed during the day, or things that we're releasing. So it's nice to have a dream journal. Not every day, like I don't write my dreams every day, but once in a while, especially if some of your dreams are recurrent. Also, if it's something that the more you practice, the more you're going to have more vivid dreams that you'll remember to work with. So that's really interesting to do. So why is this helpful to write your thoughts down? Because like I said earlier, a lot of times we get, I don't know if I said it, we get really caught up in our minds, right? And so our minds are telling us what to do with our food, are telling us to do with our bodies. And really our mind doesn't really know, because it's kind of, we have, our society is detached, our mental, from the rest of the lower chakras. We won't get technical about this, but when we write our thoughts down, we're kind of like doing a brain dump. And so we can release a lot of that tension and free up that space. That's a nice way to put it, I guess. Yeah. That's why journaling is actually very beneficial. Oh, thanks for the thumbs up. Let me know if you guys are already practicing any of these things: the mindfulness, the interbeing, the breath work, the journaling. Probably you guys are already doing some of the sunshine, how do you feel about sunscreen? How do you feel about sunglasses? Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that one. So the number 8, I wonder if it's my other list that I mentioned earlier. So to move the body in ways that are fun and pleasurable. Why is this so important? The fun and pleasurable is so it has to be sustainable. It has to be something we get excited about, that we look forward to. When I wake up in the morning, there are a couple of things I do look forward to, and that's how I get to practice them more. Meditation is actually one of the things I look forward to. So what feels good to you is going to be different than what looks good, feels good to someone else. Yay, Ron! And Bushido! Yeah. So nice to see you. Yeah. Well, what are the ways that feel good for you to move your body? So I discovered, I took dance classes, and I realized how much it makes me feel so good. And since it's social dance that I've been learning, it actually has an extra added dimension that it helps me in my relating to the masculine, actually. So in Latin, in social dancing, there's this whole dynamic. It's usually, most typically, it's going to be a male lead and a female follow. So I've talked about this before, but it's something fun. It's something that, again, helps me to know myself better. And it's a really beautiful way to explore, and it moves the body, definitely. Be okay. I like this quote, like, be okay with being bad at something new. So for me, I started learning last year was amazing for me, because I started learning, like I said, freediving in February of last year. And then I started also, I have my book in here. I started learning how to use a katana, or a training. This one is a bookend that I ordered from Japan. And combines a lot of this breath work and the movement, and definitely is something freediving, dancing, and Bushido I get so excited, get so motivated, and they make me move my body at the same time, control my energy, my breathing, and my mental, all at the same time. So how amazing is that? And how does that bring vitality and energy? How does it not? It gets so a healthy body has the chi, all of that energy constantly moving. When there is stagnation, that's when illness builds up, right? So we want that energy to be constantly moving. And so it's obvious that you're going to move the body, right? And there are other ways like doing breath work while you're sitting still, and then you're focusing on moving your hara up and down. I mentioned in the other video, microcosmic orbit, which is a qigong practice where the breath is moved from the Tantian all the way up to the crown. So not necessarily you have to move the body to move the energy, but it's a really good way. Swimming is awesome as well, right? Yeah. So I wrote down my favorite. So martial arts for me it's really a complete practice because it does the higher forms of martial art have a lot of mental control and energetic control. And I'm talking about Aikido, things like that. So of course, yoga. Everyone knows that yoga uses a lot of breath work, and I've said this being repetitive, but the original asana physical postures of yoga were created in order to sit more comfortably in meditation for hours, right? So qigong, tai chi, yeah. So we're down to our last 2 points that I jotted down for you guys in a moment of inspiration. My number 9 is spending a few minutes a day in silence. So notice I didn't use the word meditation here. People get really scared with that word. So it doesn't have to be meditation. So, but silence. What is your relationship with silence, first of all? Some people can't stand silence, right? Did you hear stories of city folk, which used to be me, who would go to the country and it's so quiet that they cannot sleep. So isn't that so interesting, our relationship to silence? So I love music. So I always have music in the background, or I have some sort of like kind of sound healing thingy going on. I deliberately choose times where there's no music, and it's silence. And this is time apart from my sitting meditation practice, which I also have. So, for example, like I'm going to do the dishes, and I'm going to do the dishes in silence, deliberately, mindfully. So, yeah. Why is that? Why is that important? Because the music and the sound it's still stimulus, right? So remember we were saying all our energy is stuck here in the mind area. Our mind is constantly receiving stimulus, processing, multitasking. So the silence gives it a different just a different perspective. It's like, oh, there's something missing. Or it's right, it's like when you're blindfolded, your other senses awaken. So something like that. But of course, meditation. You want to do your meditation, and even it's different, right? When you do your meditation with music, a lot of people have music. Doing it silently, it's also different. Doing a guided meditation versus a lot of people say, "Oh, I can only do guided meditation because, like, in silent meditation, I can't do the silent meditation." So interesting, right? Because why? Our thoughts are louder at that point. Yeah. And journaling. When you're journaling, I'm questioning myself because you are still having that conversation. You have silent time during journaling. Okay. All right. So again, kind of like a haphazard, right? These different points. My 10th and last, I'm going to recap them for those of you who came in later. Number 1, get more sunshine. Number 2, practice forgiveness, mostly of yourself. Number 3, letting go of blame, being accountable. Number 4, learning to accept yourself with all your flaws. Number 5, taking longer, deeper breaths. Number 6, gradually being mindful of how you eat and not only what you eat. Number 7, writing down your thoughts. Number 8, moving your body in fun, pleasurable ways. Number 9, spending time in silence daily, even for a few minutes. And the last one is nurturing the meaningful relationships in your life. And for me, this is so important for health and well-being and our immune system and vitality. Because we can, no matter how introverted, shy we are, We need other people. Yeah, we get love from them. We bounce things off of them. Good, bad. All of these are part of our human experience, and we need each other. So make an effort. I'm challenging you guys. It's new. It's a new year. In Water Tiger, water is about emotions. It's about connection, right? So look at the relationships in your life, and take that tiger leap. Be bold and reach out to that person who's been on your mind. And even if there is a risk of rejection. Rejection is one of the wounds that I've been working with. I get hurt. I get hurt like everyone else. I feel rejected like everyone else. But the more we practice equanimity, realizing that, well, it's okay. Like, we're not going to die from rejection, and also maybe it's not about you. Maybe, but still taking that risk, and most of the time it pays off. Yeah, making time for your nurturing your relationships is going to be so helpful for your overall health and well-being. Carving out time for them. And so, yeah, being mindful. Part of this is being mindful where you put your time, because our time is precious. And obviously, if you're going to be spending time having coffee with a friend, or whether it's a Zoom call or whatever, that's taking time off from something else. But relationships are at the core of our humanity. Like, everything is built on that, whether it's professional life or yeah. So that's my last point. All right. So in conclusion, guys, this is again my personal view as an energy healer and teacher. Health starts from the inside, right? So that's why I was saying, like, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, what your political views are. I really feel like you can do all the external stuff and get the best doctors and all of the booster shots in the world. But if your inner world is, how can I say, if you don't look at it, most likely those external things aren't going to be as helpful. Okay, that's kind of a diplomatic way to say it. It's hard to express, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about. If you watched till now, you probably agree with me. So yeah, so getting to the root of our suffering, taking the time to see, to realign, and find out how. And I often ask my body, if I have pain, like, what is it telling me? So build that relationship with your body. Hi, Bina. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad. I hope this is helpful. If you want to connect with me a little bit further, I'm on Instagram, again, Kazane_Wendy, and on Facebook I have the Gasho Circle group. And I'm actually thinking of doing a longer course. So I do a lot of workshops online, in person, and I'm thinking of, this would be fun to actually implement together as a group. So, if you guys are interested in doing like kind of more a workshop where we could do this together and do some exercises and some breath work, some movement together, some journaling prompts, I would be totally, totally down with that. So let me know if that's something that would interest you. You can contact me directly on those channels I mentioned, IG and FB, or leave a comment, and that can be arranged. All right, guys. I guess there's no questions. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your energy, your presence, and may you guys all be very healthy, full of energy, and I'm sending you my love. Good night. Bye.